Well. Um, well, it's always difficult to start. And to start with, I would like to tell you that 40 years ago, when I started, like you are now, when I started in the business, being an independent producer for producing documentary was almost impossible. Why? Because all the TVs, not only in Europe, in Latin America as well, in Asia as well, in in America, were doing their stuff in-house. It's very important to understand that. Independent producer was meaning nothing 40 years ago. We started this new job, we started these new companies with no access to the TVs. Means we were earning our lives outside. I was a philosophy teacher. And it was almost impossible to make our earning out of producing. We were coming from the militancy, basically not the extremely right, but the extremely left, following Mai 68 and all that period of time. So we were acting as social, cultural, political communicants. It's very clear, it's all of us at that period of time. And because we were militants, we knew how to fight, because it was a fight, against the broadcasting system, against the governments, because we had no real existence. And we started with that. We started for defending the documentary genre, asking for new laws, asking for new means, asking for money to work and to recognize us as producers, having access to channels and being able to start working professionally. That was 40 years ago, yesterday. And almost everybody forgot that. It had been forgotten. It's like the situation we know now with the independent producers are more and more strong, are more and more working for all type of broadcasters, platforms, and so on. It's just a story which started 40 years ago. The second thing, so means that we have had at that time to learn and to professionalize ourselves. We were filmmakers. I started in the business because no producers were existing or were willing to produce the type of film we were doing, which were militant films. So we produced ourselves. And we learned by producing. There was no school, there were no masters like you have now. Nothing. There is not a single book. There is no way to learn except to work for learning, working. The second point we started, and I wrote when we founded Les Films d'ici, was that the first one was the professionalization. The second one was internalization. These two legs were completely new because 40 years ago, 35 years ago, the international market for documentary didn't exist at all, at all. The only piece was from the BBC, because of the Commonwealth, because of their common language with the US. They had that part of English-speaking market. But for Spain, for Italy, for Germany, for France, for Japan, for all the other countries, just no way. Nothing. Zero. And the first idea I had as well for funding the Film DC, because it is in the wording of the text I wrote to fund the Film DC, internationalization, based on a very simple idea. A documentary film, when it's well made, can travel and can ignore the borders. Easier than drama, not easier than animation, because animation is very easy to make it in different languages. But documentary, because it deals with real life, it deals with real people, can travel. And we can see that still today. Internationalization means, at that time we were also doing a lot of films out of France, out of Europe. We were doing films in Colombia, in Chile, in America, in Asia, many countries. Like we, the whites, were the ones to go to tell the stories from the third world, or what we were calling the third world at that time. And we were also against that. We were saying, yes, we do it, but we have to help the Latinos, the Africans, or the Asians to make their own films. And it was really part of what we were doing. I've been doing a lot, sorry, a lot of training, a lot of masterclass and so on in all this country, mainly in Latin America, but to help them to grow up. And I produced a lot of Latin American filmmakers too. So it's all that political concept, which was really from the very beginning, which is still in action today. And Sunnyside, I'll tell you the story a little bit later. Sunnyside is also an illustration of this principle, concept. So the first thing I would like you to understand is that the story I'm going to tell you is a 35 years story, 35 years. And it is as well a short period of time. But during that period of time, we have been through many changes and technical changes. She's so nice. Merci. Many changes. When I started as a filmmaker, I was shooting 16 millimeters. Then appeared Super 16. We were shooting Super 16 and blow up 35 with a much better quality. Then appeared video. Video at the beginning, it was a nightmare. Very bad quality. And we have been fighting to keep on shooting on film. For a long time, it had been really a fight. What happened? when you have been a militant and you have been reading L'Art de la Guerre, the war art, Lutzen, you learn that you need to have allies. You have to make alliances. And I did the first big alliance with the laboratories, technical laboratories, because they were making their money out of the cinema shooting, out of the film, chemical. And we had that first alliance, and it was very important because the laboratories were strong economically, and the official governmental agencies were taking care of their words and concerns. Being with them, we succeeded to get to a first law giving documentary a legal existence, which wasn't the case before. I'm talking in France, but it's true all over Europe. Then, having a legal acknowledgement, we could ask for the first row of support, financial support for documentary, which wasn't the case before. And we negotiated, and we built up the system we have in France now, you certainly know, which is when you have a broadcaster, you are allowed to get between 15 and 20% of public money to support the production, or to support the distribution, or to support many type of things. And it's still in the process, because 2 years ago, I've been writing a report for the CNC, which is the National Agency for Cinema and Audiovisual, to improve the system, to give better support, for example, for the documentary which are financed or partly financed by foreign money. If you do the job to go abroad, to find partners, to find broadcasters, and so, which is a hard job, then you have more money from the support, which is good. If you do films about history, science, arts, and culture, you have as well more money. Why? Because these films are more expensive to produce. They have more chance to go abroad, to be exported. And they have a longer trail than what the TVs are doing. TVs are doing domestic programs all over the world because they think, and they are wrong, they think they need to feed the immediate need of what they think are the immediate needs of their audiences. They just forgot one thing. TV audiences all over Europe, again, are with an average of 63 years old. Now, next year, if I come back, I'll tell you 63 and 6 months. In 2 years, 64, and so on. Because all the youth is going away. They are not. A TV set appears like an antiques. And the platforms coming up are killing the TV system like it was. So we are now in that big change, in that big revolution. I've been talking about the going from 16, Super 16 to video. You have all the different layers of video, you know, from the very bad one at the beginning, to the HD, which starts to be a good media. Also 3D, also, and now VR and ER and all that. I'm going to talk about that later on as well. So all these technical changes or revolutions, documentary people have always been keen to that, have always been using this innovation to test it. I was the first one to test the new Super 16 camera. And we did something completely crazy. We produced a film by Robert Kramer. It's called Road One USA. He spent a full year on the road in the USA, going down the Route 1, which is a very old road going from north to Miami. A year shooting with a camera nobody used before. And the craziness was that the sync, the sound sync, didn't work. We spent, I think, 3 months to re-sync the stuff. So it's completely crazy, but we were crazy. We are still, but a little bit less. So it's part also of our DNA, and we have to keep that, because documentary can experiment, can use new stuff, new techniques. And today it's the case also with all the new, what we call new media, which are not new anymore, but all the new ways of telling story, not 52 minutes film or 90 minutes film, but using OVR or not, using the web, using all type of media, of distribution media, to invent new forms, mixing doc and animation, mixing doc and CGI, working on how to use archives in a more creative way. Documentary had been the first one to colorize archive black and white images. We are now able to use an archive, an animated archive, shots in the 30s, for example, and to put in the archives characters. It is very new, it works. Well, cinema knew how to do that. La rose pourpre du Caire, the purple rose of the Caire, is using that technique, but it's a technique of special effects, very expensive. Now we can do it for not so big money. And you can shoot actors in front of a green screen or blue screen, and we know how to insert them in the archive. A film is in the doing right now, which the action is in Istanbul in the 30s, early 30s. 30% of the sets are archives of the harbor, of the city, and actors are acting in these archives. So it's all these new ways of telling, that we use for telling stories in documentary. And it's what I like in documentary. It's not a conservative genre. It's not a conservative place. It's a place where the people who are in are still militant in a way, not for political purpose, but for inventing, for creating, for adapting, because we know that we have to adapt to survive. A few years ago in London, the producers were saying that it was like a motto they were always saying, adapt or die. And documentary is that. It's more than any other genre. And that's why if you look at the diversity, if you look at the creativity of documentary, you can find, we have been the ones to mix doc and drama, to mix doc and animation, to mix doc and archives in a creative way, and so on and so on. And it's what is, I think, the most positive thing for documentary. When you have questions, don't hesitate. So the story is from since the beginning. I told you we have had a first period of maybe 20 years, which had been a fight against broadcaster, which had been winning our identity, winning the means to produce, to sell, to co-produce, mean the economy. We have been building an ecosystem, which is called independent production, doc independent production system, which didn't exist before at all. And because it was obvious that it was good to co-produce, because when you have to shoot somewhere, which is not your own country, it's much better to work with someone from the country. Of course. Just telling short stories are always good. I was once in Colombia, no, it was in Argentina, and it was a party at night with friends and producers and technicians. And at some point, a bunch of technicians came later at night, and they came and they were back from shooting. And they had been shooting for Sueca television. And he came and the friends say, how was it? And they laughed and say, oh, absolutely perfect. It's the third time this month we go to shoot exactly the same thing at the same place for 3 different European television. And they were wrong because they asked us to go at that time of the day instead of going in the morning where the light is better and so on and so on. So it's completely stupid, but they were just hired, you know, they were not, nobody have been asking them, is it the good place to shoot? Is it the good hour to shoot? Could we go somewhere else? No, just like that. And it was, of course, everybody had been telling his own story of the same. And they felt they were just used as technicians, but not used as creative people. And that's what documentary must be about. Today, for example, it's really, well, in Latin America, it's okay because they have all their talents, and so the problem in Latin America is different. Is they didn't succeed to learn to work together. Which is a pity. But at least they have their own talents and their own systems, and they can make their own stories, which is not the case yet in Africa, or not enough. So it's for you. It's your mission for the future, is to help the African filmmakers to make their own films, which is difficult, of course. So for 20 years, we have been through this fight against broadcaster to win the right to be an independent producer, to keep rights. At the beginning, when I made my first film for a broadcaster in France, he asked for eternity. Not paying the full bill, the full budget, just a part of it, but they asked for rights for eternity. That was normal for them. And I said no. The first contract I signed, I succeeded to reduce to 20 years, which is crazy, but better than eternity. The second one, I succeeded to sign for 10 years. And at that time, it appeared as something impossible. 10 years. Nowadays, we are about 2 to 3 years. So you can see the time it took and the evolution it represents. Building governmental or regional or European systems for funding, fighting against the broadcaster to sell them the rights to use our films, but not to keep the rights. And and giving us the ecosystem to develop the company. For example, when I was running Les Films d'ici, we were producing more or less 40 hours of documentary each year, more or less. And we have been creating quickly a catalog. The sales from this film, achieved film, represented 15% of the cash flow of the company. 15% was exactly what we were needing to develop new projects. So it's thanks to the catalog, we were able to finance our development. Even today, if you look at the numerous production companies doing documentary, very few can finance their own development. It's the weakness of all these small production companies. We have too many. In France only, we have 600 documentary production companies. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's now for 30 years, I tell them, regroup, make companies bigger, work with others, join forces. That's what we did at Film d'ici. We were 3 producers. But I don't know why, or I know why, it doesn't work. There are some groups like that, some companies which are strong because they are built up on that. Forces, joint forces, but most of the companies are really too small, and they are going to disappear. They are going to not to be strong enough to afford the changes today. Let's talk about today. What is the situation? The public broadcasters, as well as the commercial broadcasters, are facing a wave coming from America, which is the platforms. Netflix, Amazon, and tomorrow the Walt Disney big coming up. What is the policy of, let's take Netflix, but it's true for all others, regarding documentary? They need documentary, they are investing in documentary more and more. It's not like, oh, documentary, it's old-fashioned, it's, No. No, they need documentary because their audiences all over the world, they need entertainment, they need animation for the kids, but they need documentary also, more and more. So what are they doing? They are doing exactly what HBO did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. HBO was willing to make the best documentary production ever. They were doing 12 films a year. 12. And they were buying a little number of others for their secondary channels. But for the main channel, for HBO, 12 films a year. Goal, winning the Oscar. Point. Giving HBO a strong brand name. How did they do that? They did that by selecting a few producers, filmmakers, talents all over the world. And they started with someone who I met who worked for 3 years just going around the world, each country, each documentary event or festival, for following the talents and selecting and making short lists. His job was to say, okay, in Spain, you are going to make a short list of 2. In Italy, a short list of 3. In France, a short list of 5. In Germany, a short list of 4, and so on. And he did it. I know it well because I was in the short list for France. What does it mean? It means that you have a kind of stamp on the front saying you are recognized as able to work with HBO. If you have a project which fits our expectations. When I produced co-produced the Murder on a Sunday Morning, which Paco told you about, Un coupable idéal in French, which is a story taking place in the US, in Florida, and it's a crime story. When we have been doing the rough cut, I called HBO, the boss, and I told her, well, look, I know I'm in the short list, blah, 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 and I have a story for you. I would like to send you the rough cut, and so that you can tell me yes or no. She said, yes, send me. So I sent the tape. 24 hours later, she received it. She called me and said, please come right now to New York. We are in, and we want to discuss how it's going to go. So that's exactly what a shortlist means. If I had not been in the shortlist, they even wouldn't have answered me. That's the way Netflix is working now. They are doing their shortlist. Do you think they are going to select a small company fighting for surviving? No.
Hello, I'm Bettina. I will be a teacher, I think, for some of you next week for international producing. In Spain or in Barcelona, we have a documentary association called PAC. And the Netflix people came there. And because they are just, all the companies are small, the only one who was big was Media Pro. And they invited to present the producer the project because Spain is such a small market. It's different than France, there you I just want to say, if you're interested to present project in Spain, it goes via PAC. No, maybe you know Paco. No, so here it's like this.
But this is a system they are preparing, and they exactly know what they want. But they are very open-minded as well. They are not willing, like Discovery had been doing for years. Discovery had been discoverizing the projects. Say, okay for financing your project, I even put 110%, but you do what I tell you to do, especially in the editing room. HBO didn't do that, and Netflix is not doing that. They understood that the quality, that the strength of a film comes from its originality, and they are working on such a large audience worldwide that they know that the film will go to, even if it's a niche, they know that the niche is big enough for them. That's a big difference between a national broadcaster and a Netflix or Amazon strategy. They are not working for Spanish-speaking people. In Spain, they are working maybe for Spanish-speaking people all over the world, which makes a big difference. So we are facing that, and the broadcasters are facing that because they did. We, as producer, independent producer, we are agile. I would say we are. We know how to move. We know how to adapt quickly. Broadcasters not. There had been RTV is a good example of that. RTV has been thinking that they would last forever, the way they were working. Nowadays, they have to face what's going on. How many Netflix subscribers do you have in Spain? I don't know. In France, 5 million. Or in Spain, what? 3.5 maybe, or something like that. And it means that these people are not looking anymore to TVs. So it's the end of a system. That's why the big channels like BBC, well, France Télévisions, ZDF, or German television, but very slowly, too small conception, are trying to become platforms themselves. But they are late. They should have been doing that 5 years ago. They didn't. They didn't trust that the platforms wave was going to overcome them. They are too late. They don't know how to adapt to that. So they can talk. They can say, we have to adapt. But they don't do it. They are too late. And mostly for us, what we must understand is that as we have been fighting against the domestic trend, yes, we have to make documentary about our own countries, of course. But it must be, it's not the way to develop. It's not the way to grow. It's not the way to help talents to work in a better way. Even in France today, happily we have a channel called Arte, which is open mind to international content. But if you look at the France Télévisions channels, except one, France 5, which is better, the other ones, they are not willing to bring international content. because they think that the viewers are not willing to understand the world, which is completely stupid, really. But it's true, more or less, but it's true for 63 plus years old audience. It's not true for 30 or 35 years old. It's just a mistake they are doing for the last 40 years. And they are paying the bill now. We have to adapt. Yesterday, I met producers from the association, 13 back-to-back, for understanding their projects and giving them some advices. One of them came with a very, very good ID project, very interesting project. In a word, it's a story of an Iraqi guy who had been immigrants to Germany, and he succeeded. He started to make his life in Germany, and then after a year, he decided to go back to his hometown, Mosul, as he was an architect, to be part of a group of Iraqi architects deciding to rebuild the city. He left Germany, went back. That's the story, shortly explained. And she was telling me, well, that's a story. I said, great, it's really a very good story. And she said, yes, but no one in Spain, no channel in Spain is interested by such a story. I said, so what? What's your problem? You say, I have no money to start with. I said, you're making one mistake. Analyze your project. Who in the world, which is small as we know, who in the world is mostly interested by your story? Not Spain, not Italy, even not France. Arte, certainly. Germany. Go to Germany. Find a buddy. Find a German indie co-producer, and I can give you a long list of it, of them. Find one, and I bet that ZDF, ERD, or other channel will compete to have such a story. So the problem is not, I'm Spanish, I expect my broadcaster, national broadcaster or regional broadcaster, to help me. No, it's not the way. I've been doing many films. Not most of the time, but for certain important project, I've been raising up money in the US or in UK or even in Italy before to get French broadcasters' money. It's just a matter of having that open mind and that dynamic mind you need to have if you want to make documentary. That's also why I'm still involved in documentary making, because it's that. And if it's not that, stop immediately, because it's not going to go far. It's not going to go positive. It's difficult. It's a lot of work. It's time. It's a lot of understanding of who is the one in the US I can work with, who is the one in Iraq I can work with, and so on and so on. So it's a long walk. but it's exciting. When we were at the top of that market, international market, led by TVs, led by broadcasting, and mostly public broadcasting system. It was my last pitch in Amsterdam. You know what a pitch is? Okay. The last pitch I did in Amsterdam Forum. So I went on stage, and the moderator said, we have now a veteran, Yves Jeanneau, 15 years ago, a veteran, Yves Jeanneau, is going to pitch a project about Norman Mailer. Who knows Norman Mailer? Nobody? Who knows Arthur Miller? Okay. Well, Norman Mailer he's dead now, was certainly a bigger writer, US writer, than Miller. Okay? At the time, he had been also very strongly acting against the Vietnam Wars, the civil rights, and so on, but mostly he was one of the main writers of the 20th century. Okay. You don't know him. You can go in the library and read the book. It's great. Anyway, Norman always refused to make anything with TVs. Of course, PBS, BBC, all the main TVs had been asking him, chasing him, for having his agreement to make a documentary about him, to tell his story. He had a very, very good story. He had been stabbing one of his wives, had been doing boxing against journalists, and so forth. He was a character. Wonderful character. Complicated. Anyway, he always refused. By chance, or by work, I met him, we discussed, and I proposed him not to make a film about him, but to make a film with him. At that time, he was writing a book about America, about his America. I said, that's what is interesting to me. We are going to make a short series. We made 3 one-hour films, where you are going to tell us how you feel, how you think, how you behave, how you react in front of what is America today. And you say, yes. That, yes. I agree. You're not going to cut what I'm going to say. I swear. So we became friends. He wrote me a letter, manuscript, saying, I agree to make the film. It was called Norman Mailer's America. And it's the first, and it's going to be the last film I make for TV. I will never make another one. Point, Norman Mailer. I went on the stage of Amsterdam Forum, and I said to the audience, I said, well, look, I'm not going to pitch long. I just want to show you something. And I showed the letter. Why? Because the key point when you pitch, well, there are 2 key points. The first one is called exclusive access to. But exclusive. The letter was saying exclusive access to Norman Mailer. It's done. if you tell me I have an exclusive access to what is going on today in Pompeii, where they are digging and finding all the new evidences of what happened there, you are going to sell it all over the world. It was the same for Norman Mailer. I had the exclusivity. The second important key point is when you can tell shortly, quickly, easily what the film is going to look like visually. And I said it's going to be very simple. The film will be made with a camera and Norman Mailer in front of the camera, talking, point. Very few archives. Because Norman was like an actor. He had his face, his body was so, he had very blue eyes and very, very deep look. So it's going to be a very simple way, because the most important is what Norman is going to say, is going to explain. So it was a very simple dispositif, but it was very efficient and it was very, very accurate to what Norman was willing to do and to say. Then I said, okay, I have nothing more to tell you. Just the film will be finished by and I just ask you, who is with me? 9 hands went up. 9. But not the BBC and not PBS. They were in the room, of course. So when you have 9 channels in a room saying, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in, it's very rare, so everyone around applauded. It appeared as a success. And then I said, well, thank you. But now I'm going to tell you the truth. These 9 broadcasters, I met them before, because they know me, I know them, and we had meetings before. And they said yes before the pitch. All this is just a mise en scène. I'm just doing all that, not for them. They already agreed. I'm doing that for you. I'm doing that for you. You was the PBS head of American Masters, and the BBC was the head of documentary, cultural documentary. I was absolutely fed up, upset, against most of my documentary filmmaker mates, because they were always crying. Nobody wants my project. Nobody is giving me a dime. My film had been, I've never been finished, never been shown on a cinema screen, of course. And these guys, at the time, created an association in France called Ad Hoc, and they are still existing, asking for money from the state to make their films without any control or commitment from anybody else. Okay, that's the dream of the artist. I was upset against that. Because yes, we have to be artists. Yes, we have to do creative work for the films we do. But we have to understand what we are part of an ecosystem, we are part of of a business. Come on. Nobody is going to give you money to do what you want without any control or without any understanding of who you are going to make the film for. It's not serious. And these people were, I tried to make an image out of that. They were crying so much that they were doing the rainy side of the dock. And I said, and it comes from a song, a blues song, walk on the sunny side of the street. Don't be in the shadow. Don't be dark. Don't be sad. Be in the sunlight, be in the sunny side, be walking in front of all what you have to face, because making documentaries is not something obvious. It's not something the powers, the economical powers, are willing. It's part of an educational will, on a large sense of it, to educate, to let people understand what's going on, especially when you go to investigative documentary, where, when you do that, you must know you are going to be in trouble. And you are in trouble. Seriously, sometimes. So it's the sunny side of the dock comes from that song and comes from that will of being positive and not crying. Then when we started that crazy idea, everybody behind my back was saying, this guy is crazy. This guy thinks, really, that the BBC someday will sign a contract for broadcasting a film made in Spain? Impossible. He thinks that an American channel would buy a European content one day? Never. Never, ever. And at the beginning, it was really difficult. But it happened that Sunnyside became a place where professionals like to gather, like to be together, like to know each other. And more foreigners came, more and more European in the first place, but also people from America, from Canada, from Japan, from some countries like that. And it started to create a group of people who each year were coming and coming back and coming again and talking about projects, discussing their own difficulties in their country, taking advantage of what had been doing in France or in Germany or wherever to get new ideas, to organize them in a better way. It's a time when in many countries, as in Latin America, for example, we started to help them to create national documentary association. It was true in Brazil, it was true in Colombia, it was true in many countries. And this association, which didn't exist before, started to obtain laws or decisions to help them to develop their documentary national activities. still exist. The Brazilian, I hope they are going to come again, but it's a different story. But the Brazilian association called Bravi, they are coming every year with a delegation of 20 Brazilian producers to Sunnyside, where they do succeed. Some of them are doing really big co-production now, but because they came for a long time. It's not first time you do it. But some of them are co-producing with one of the biggest German producer, Gerber Bits, or co-producing with French producer, or so on. Or working in China. Or, well, they really integrated the world circuit, the international market. It takes time, but it is regular, and it is the way to go. So that's what Sunnyside is about. So it is, as well, a market where it's not a festival. You're not going there for screening films. I don't screen films. This is the festival jobs. I gather the new achieved documentary film from all over the world, and they are for sale. They are sold by the sales agents, distributors. Almost all the big distribution companies from all over the world are there. Not only for selling, but also for looking after the new projects and say, hey, your project, I'm going to take care of it. I can put an avaloir, I can put a minimum guarantee, and I take care of the distribution. More and more, these distribution companies are also taking care of the financing of the film before it's done. You see what I mean? For the small companies, means it's a kind of studio system. You have, it's true in England already. The distribution companies are owning the production companies, and they have, depending on their strategy, but they have maybe one or two drama company, one or two animation company, a couple of documentary company, some companies doing internet, web stuff, and new media, and so on. And they so that they guarantee their sourcing. And when they come to Sunnyside, they come also for extending their sourcing, having more. Because when you are a distributor, if you don't renew your catalog, you are dead. Each time you have to bring new stuff. And you have to know, for example, one of the biggest distribution company, they are now doing different catalogs for different markets. They have a catalog for Asia, which is completely different from the catalog they have for Europe. And they have a sales force in Asia. So it's the market for the sales. Question, I've always been facing that because I have some money from the EU for doing that. And each year the EU is asking a very, very complex file. You have to answer the questions. One of the questions is, can you evaluate financially the market? How much had been sold, how much had been spent during the market? It's almost impossible to answer for two reasons. One is that it's not, the market doesn't work where someone, a buyer, see a film or a project and say, I take it. And we sign the contract. It's not anymore. It was a long time ago, but it's not anymore. He goes back to his headquarters. He reports to his head of program or head of business affair or whatever. And then a proposal is sent. So it's a long time. So during a market, someone would say, I'm interested. I want your film, but I have to go back and we have to enter the process. It's a very positive answer. Usually it goes to the end, but it's not signed. So the distributor wouldn't say, I sold it. He would say, it was positive, we have had good contacts, and we are waiting for the contracts. And it doesn't make a figure. So it's always like that. It's a market which had been changing also a lot in the last years. And it's interesting to understand that. Before 2008, and 2008 is the financial crisis. Before 2008, the big public broadcasters were the big clients. And when you were going to sell such a documentary film, if you could sell it to Denmark TV was paying between 10 and 15,000 euro for a 1-hour film. Okay? And you knew that in Germany you could sell it 40 or 50,000. You knew that in Canada you could sell it between 10 and 20,000, and so on. It was clear. The prices were clear. Today, Denmark, they propose 3,500 instead of 10. And it's almost the same everywhere. Why? Because all these TVs had been suffering the financial crisis, budget cuts, and everything had been down. We could cry and say, oh, it's more difficult. But in the same time, something happened. The globalization of the market. Exactly at the same time, Asian countries, South Africa, more Latin American countries, started to open new channels, thematic channels, private channels, or continental platforms like Nat Geo or Arts and Entertainment over Latin America, for example. And these new channels needed to buy a lot of documentary with low prices, but still big numbers. So the distributors had to change their organization, had to change the way they work. Only the big one could do it. Only the ones who invest could do it. Because it means that you need to have more people working on more territories. You have to make more package deal. You have to find ways to, blockchain is one, to avoid all the heaviness of contract administration, payment, delivery of stuff, and so on. And the digital revolution allows that. Now you don't send a copy, you send a file, and so on. So it's all the distribution business had been changing. the average price of one sales act, low down. But the number of acts extended. Okay? So it changes the whole thing. It changes the financing game. Today, if you have a sales agent who understands that your project is going to make at least 50,000 euros over the world, at least with sales, is going to invest 25. If he thinks it's going to make more than 100, he can invest 50. In French, we say, il pleut toujours où c'est mouillé. It rains where it's already wet. When you have a big distributor saying, I pay, and you have a couple of important broadcasters with you, you'll get more money. If you don't have them, you will not get money. It's stupid, but that's the way it is. It's a market. So the sales the sales activity is very important because it's a way to understand the evolution of the market and to give some hope also to the people who are making documentaries. My question is, why do these more than excuse me. Why do these more than 100 sales agents are coming to Sunnyside, paying their booth, paying their trips, the hotel, the communication, and so which is an investment, right? And the answer is there is only one. It's because during Sunnyside, they make enough business. Otherwise, they are not philanthropists. And they never answer the question, how much did you sell? It's like a state secret. They, for example, they don't want usually to have a booth side by side with another big distributor. They don't want, because they don't want people to know who they are dealing with. It's a kind of... Okay, that's for the distribution. The second leg of Sunnyside is through the pitching and through the organization we have to promote and to co-finance the best projects we can. And we organize that by thematics. Instead of having, like in Amsterdam, a pitch where you have all kind of thematic at the same time, all type of documentary films, we organize pitch session by thematic. So history, science and nature, arts and culture, human stories and social issues, including investigation, and wildlife, which is a small one, but because wildlife, it's a club. The number of broadcasters able to finance a project is very limited, but they are big. They are called Walt Disney, they are called BBC, they are called ERD in Germany, and so on. So it's big channels, not small ones. It's too expensive. The small ones are going to buy. They all buy wildlife stuff, but they don't invest upfront. So it's a different story. And you have also very few producers able to produce, because it takes a long time, because it takes really specialized means, specialized talents. Imagine if you are going to make a documentary film, a wildlife doc film about whales. What camera? Who is able to dive with whales, and so on and so on. So it's very, very specialized. So this pitch is more like a club we gather each sunny side. In the second time, they are going to gather in Jackson Hole, USA, where they have each year their, it was each 2 years now, it's going to be each year their festival. So it's a kind of circuit the club is moving around year long. These pitch sessions, we select 6 projects from all over the world, and I try to keep the diversity of these films, not only German, British, French, and Canadian and American, but we try to open to the entire world, which is difficult, but we do it. Spanish project, Catalan project, had been successful in the last years. Especially last year in the arts and culture pitch, it was Catalan, yes. A Catalan company won with a project, maybe you know, called Flamingo, Pink Flamingos. It was completely strange as a project, different from all the other projects. And the jury, because we have a jury, professional jury, gave them the best arts and culture pitch. And you are going to ask me the right question. And then what happened? They won the little money, 2,000 euro for the best pitch. Not big money, but it paid for all their expenses to come. And then, a few months later, they signed a co-production contract with one pretty big French production company, which means a French broadcaster, which means more than that, access to a lot of broadcasters who liked the project, but who didn't know the producer. Confidence is a key, not only a word, it's a key problem. If you appear for the first time to the market, broadcasters are going to be careful. So if you join a company they know and say, we co-produce together. The same story for what I told you about Pompeii. A young Italian producer came 2 years ago to Sunnyside. It was the first time. Nobody knew him, he knew anybody. Nobody. And he knew the guy who was leading the researchers in Pompeii, which were starting at the time. He just didn't know how to produce such a thing. It was too big for him. So he met several people, especially one of the biggest producer in France, Gédéon. And Gédéon made an agreement with him to co-produce. And they are developing a big, huge project, not only a film, but also an exhibition in Le Grand Palais in Paris in next March, And it's going to be the first exhibition in a museum where there will be absolutely no objects. No painting, no sculpture, nothing. Nothing. Only digital pieces. First time. Inventiveness of documentary producers. Adapting to modern life, adapting to the new needs, adapting to what technology allows, technology didn't allow before. So these pitch sessions are really the beating heart of Sunnyside. If you come to Sunnyside and you follow these 5 pitch sessions, you can have a picture of what's going on in the world. What are the trends? What the broadcasters don't want anymore? Or what they didn't want before and they are now willing or interesting to have. Example, biopics. 10 years ago, it was almost impossible to sell a documentary about an actor or about a musician, or about, I don't know. Today, we can see, because we have, in the last years, we have had projects and successful projects about John Ford, about great American or English actors, Josephine Baker, all these, big names, international big names. And there is a new trend, there is a new market for these films. So it's what also Sunnyside is about, is to follow, to get to the trends, to understand the trends, and to be able to develop the project the market is willing or is expecting. Environmental stuff, for example. Science stuff, when it goes to really important issues like the cosmos or the expeditions to Moon or to Mars, this type of thing, which are complicated to produce, expensive and difficult, but this stuff is expected all over the world. Your job today is not only to say, okay, I can make a film out of it, or a series for TV, or for cinema, or whatever, or for platform. This is just a part of your responsibility. You have immediately to think about, from that story, what can I do to produce the film, the series, but also to aim at a youth audience. Means what? Means internet first. Means maybe a game, a quiz, or I don't know what. Means maybe a comics book. Means maybe, I don't know. More than that, I have to ask me, how do I create an event which will support the broadcasting, which will make the broadcasting something people are not willing to miss? Okay? I discuss with the Grand Palais, I discuss with the organization there, and I propose them a very new idea, never done, never ever done, which is to make an exhibition with nothing but digital means. Mapping, you know what mapping is? Okay. Mapping, VR, ER, XR, whatever, excerpt of film, whatever you can imagine to make this new and to make this attractive. This is, and then you say, okay, what do I forget? Oh, I forgot, yes, I can make easily 10 part, 26 minute or 13 minute pedagogical series for schools and easy. I have all the access. Not big deal. And that's what a media maker must be. It is, how do they call it in the drama series? A runner. You must be a runner. You must be the one to say, we forgot something. We have another angle to cover, 360. That's what you must have in your head. On the same story, you must think on all the medias, all the forms, all the ways you can use the story to make it known. And more you do, more each one is going to appear important. Ah, yes, the pedagogical theory I saw at school is the same story as we saw on TV or as we saw on the exhibition. And it makes every single thing better, bigger, more attractive, and eventually financially better. That's what your job is going to be like. What TVs, who are always late and always delayed, are looking today for? They are looking for what they call, or what we call, YouTubers. Guys who can gather 100,000 or 1 million followers with their TVs on internet, on YouTube usually. And they try to pick up these guys and to give them a slot or to give them a TV slot on which they think they are going to do the same. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. For two reasons. Because the followers don't follow on TV, one, over. Second, because the YouTubers, when they arrive in the institution, they don't feel free. They don't feel à l'aise, ease. So it doesn't work. These guys are asking us not to teach them, but to professionalize them. Because they are not professionals. They are kids who had the idea one day to make a YouTube TV about making up or about science or about history or about art because it exists. And some of them are very popular. And they ask us to professionalize them. To meet, it's something we are going to do next Sunday, to meet their counterparts from other countries. How do the Germans do? How do the Americans do? So that they can create a kind of network of people doing that and trying to defend their rights, to make money out of YouTube. and to professionalize and develop them. It's very interesting. This is interesting. And this is exactly what I'm talking when talking about media maker. In the US, for example, if you take the science, well, they call it science communicants. It's a new job. Science communicants is someone who use all type of medias to present and defend science evidences. Seems easy. Just think that in America, more than 40% of the population trust creationism. More than 45% of the population trust that climate warming is not true. How do they deal with that? How do they use the media, which includes documentary stuff, but not a documentary film? If you make a documentary film to say, global warming exists, I can prove it to you. You're not going to convince the 40% who don't trust it. They are going to react as it is a manipulation, it is a complot, it is not true. It's a lie. So it doesn't work. So you have to, even if you do the film, you have to find a way before to create a question, to create an attention, to create maybe I have to look at it even if I think it's not true. Science communicant's job. And as a media maker, you have to elaborate your campaign like that. It's not only, oh, my film had been paid and is going to be broadcast on PBS, fine. No. There is a lot, the job is not finished. That's what you are going to face. It's passionate. It's really great. It's a completely wider job. It's not a job for a man alone. We come back to the team necessary, like it was in cinema before. You need a team. You need someone specialized in digital tools. You need one specialized as a community manager. You need people, new jobs, new talents. And you, as the producer, you must be a kind of a chef d'orchestre. You must be a leader. You must be a runner. You must be the one who creates the dynamic and invent the new forms. That's wonderful. Each year we have special focus, changing each year. This year it's science and nature. Next year it will be history, and so on. So this is the front page thematic. And we have usually one country in focus. This year it will be Germany. This year means that we have been working for a year already in Germany to convince all the broadcasters to discover new broadcasters I didn't know before, like ZDF Info, for example. I didn't know. And ZDF Info is one channel which is broadcasting more documentary than ZDF. Or Funk, which is also it's a kind of platform in Germany for documentary. Anyway, yes, I discuss with Netflix. The discussion is not about Netflix to come. They are coming. The discussion is, do you want, you Netflix, to take a mic and talk to the audience and answer the audience's question? And their answer for the moment is no. It's a rule they sign in their contract. They are not allowed to speak on behalf of Netflix in public. They need to have a very special authorization coming from LA. Otherwise, they are fired. This is the technical answer. The why behind is because their policy is not to go wide, as I explained you, is to go shortlist. So they don't need to talk to 200 producers or 2,000 producers. They don't need. They don't want. It's counterproductive for them. They need to have a lunch each day with a couple of producers they are aiming at, and the same at night, and the same at breakfast. That's what they are looking for. If they can do on 4 days, 4 breakfast, 4 lunch, 4 dinner, and 4 drinks with the ones they are chasing, they will be happy. They don't care about talking to us. Don't care. They have 5 million subscribers in France. They have, I don't know how many millions in the world. Paying $10 each month. Things are changing. Even Netflix changed its position on that. They are not asking anymore for full rights worldwide. They understood that if they do something with Swedish or Finnish or Danish producers, they have to let them to keep the Scandinavian rights, at least. At least. If they work with French, they are going to leave the French-speaking country rights. They don't like it, but they understood that they have to adapt them to the reality of the market, which is completely different. That's why they are trying, but too late again. They are trying to create their own platforms. There is a project of platform between ZDF, France Télévisions, and BBC.
What's the name?
Salto. Oh no, it's not Salto. Salto is a platform between French broadcasters, private, and that's Salto. And for the international one, I don't know the name, but it will never ever exist because BBC will never do that. Nick tried to, started a more elitist platform for the best. His idea basically was to gather the 100 best documentary film of the century altogether. So it's not, and it doesn't work. So the problem is that they should have been discussing that 5 years ago, not now, because now Netflix is in. 5 years ago, they were around. But yes, we do prepare all this. When we ask all the German professionals, to come. It goes from producers to broadcasters to regional funding to the National Regulation Organization, FFA, and so on. So it's a hard work. That's complete. So we are going to give a full picture of what is possible to do with Germany. And next year, I think I will not invite a country, I will invite the small nations. So it's always a game. It's always a dream to become real, and just to end. It's what the story of 30 years of Sunnyside is. It's a dream which became real. I wish you the same.